All right. My mic sounds nice. I hope it does at least. But yeah, this back at it. First time in a little while. We got our crew back in the fold, most of it with a special guest here, running with WARR on this Wednesday evening. It's not quite the it's not quite the 2-2 Tuesday. It's the day after. But we running it still as we always do. It's a special day when we get together. When I get together with the fellas, definitely, and we are going to be running back what happened at the All-Star break in wonderful Cleveland. Some would say wonderful. We got a representative of the land with us here in Cleveland, Cameron Fields, and we're going to let him explain just how the festivities were, and maybe if he wants to argue on uh qualities as a venture vacation spot. Cameron, you're free to do that. But we're gonna talk about, like I say, Cleveland and the All-Star festivities, and sort of bridge that into what we think is going to go on in this second. I guess it's not really a second half to me of the season because we've already played like half the games, but this latter half, this half where we're going to really figure things out and figure out the playoff format, playoff spots and everything, and all the trades have happened now, and we pretty much know the teams as they're going to be going into the playoff hunt now. So there's nothing left but to roll out that ball and see what's going to happen, and we're going to start our coverage on who's in the best positions to do what going forward into March and beyond. But plenty some more interesting and fun talk beyond that. Again, Drew in the house as usual, and Gabriel Wilkins, our man, back in effect with us. So glad that to get you guys on. It's not as easy as it's been in weeks past, but we're making it happen. But yeah, fellas, man, just as we start off this show, if you want to give your overall thoughts on what the All-Star weekend was like, what did you make of it, what some of your major like I say major takebacks and everything. We can just dive into that, and then we'll let Cameron go off on some stuff from the ground floor.
I guess I'll kick it off. For me, just the long and short of it, the changes they made to the Rising Stars competition made that thing very entertaining for me personally. I don't know how the rest of you guys feel, but outside of maybe the 3-point competition and the actual game, and obviously seeing the guys who actually came to Cleveland for the 75th anniversary celebration, like that was the next best thing to me. Pretty good competition. Some guys kind of playing maybe a little bit outside their bodies on that stage, trying to show out. I guess is kind of par for the course in that type of event, but had a lot of fun with that. Zach LaVine just can't seem to get right in these 3-point contests. Of course, he was coming off missing the last 3 games of the break, before the break, getting his knee looked at and trying to get that taken care of. But, the third time wasn't a charm for him. He's still trying to be the first guy to win a slam dunk contest trophy and a 3-point contest trophy. Maybe next year be the time for him.
He may be running that big boulder up the hill with that, man. I don't know. I don't know if that's going to be meant for him, man.
Yeah. Then lastly, just the guys who, all the all-time greats, and the players who are still, doing their thing on the court nowadays. Just seeing that collection of talent, that collection of history together, man, that was special. I don't care how long it took. I don't care, whatever gripes you might have. Like I was all in on seeing those guys together, and especially, of course, having Jordan there and having him come out and seeing him interact with Luka Doncic and Karl Anthony Towns and LeBron and everybody in general. Looking back on those pictures that were taken in the images and the videos was awesome. So that's the biggest takeaway from the weekend.
And of course, there was some notable people who didn't show up, Scotty, and for whatever reason they didn't show up. I think I take away the words of what Isaiah Thomas said. I think on NBA TV at the end of the night on Sunday, he said those people who didn't show up missed something very special, and hopefully those people who didn't show up don't have too much regret about that. If Scotty does, maybe we'll get another book out of it. But I think it's unfortunate that he didn't show up in particular, and whoever else didn't show up, whether they have reason to, I don't know who had reason to or not. But I'm pretty sure that Scotty didn't really have any reason to outside of not wanting things to be uncomfortable. But Mike was chilling, man. Mike was there giving hugs to everybody. Him and Rodman was showing love to Rodman, showing love to Mary J. Blige. He was doing his thing, man. I don't know if Mike would have been on nothing, but maybe Scotty would have been if he saw him. So I don't know.
Yeah, I was to piggyback off of that. Just kind of disappointed in Westbrook and Davis, especially not being there. I know it's a break from the action and the time that they're probably using to get their mind and bodies right and spend time with their families. But just on the outside looking in, I don't think there's any way that those two can get older and look back and not wish that they weren't a part of that, when they look back on it.
That's a good point. And that involves
I think
that's part of your running. Go ahead, Gary.
Westbrook had an engagement, according to reports from what I heard. I think like a birthday in the family or something like that. And I think Anthony Davis would have think the injury kind of, put a damper on that for him. And I think he's in the midst of just trying to get ready for that grind. I think a lot of did have legitimate excuses outside of maybe the legends of the game, maybe Karl Malone and Tim Duncan. Those guys not showing up was kind of a damper. But I think Michael being there solidified the moment and made it even more special, especially when you consider it was earlier in the day. And I think, maybe the death of Kobe had an impact on his attitude, demeanor at the event, because I saw Michael more love with guys and stuff like that, shake a guy's hand, even though he was talking trash like he typically does. That was a special moment, especially with him and LeBron. Two guys like LeBron in the post-game presser, they don't really get a chance to talk much, and they're not always in the same arena with one another, especially 20 years, the time in they first met up in the locker room in Cleveland. I thought that was pretty cool. To me, that was the highlight of the weekend, followed by, when he had 50 points on 16 triples. That was a magnificent performance. To me, he was the star of all stars on Sunday night, and to be able to put on a show like that in Cleveland, in spite of being booed, that was even more incredible.
Definitely. Let's let Cam talk now. Cameron Fields is a special assignment reporter for Cleveland.com. Cleveland Post. The Post. God, I
Cleveland Plain Dealer.
Plain Dealer. Yeah,
that's the newspaper. Yeah, but
yeah, I know that paper for a long time. I don't know why I'm blanking, but we're glad to have you on. First off, man, and you being there on the ground floor, and Cameron, even though he doesn't write about basketball, is very well schooled on basketball. So we're gonna bring him back in the future to just talk hoops. But we got him this go around to talk about just what it was like in Cleveland, the scene and everything. He covered a couple of special events himself. But like I say, from your point of view, what was the weekend like out there? You got, Cleveland gets a lot of talked down upon in a lot of ways. But this is a pretty special season overall for basketball in that town, given the way that the Cavaliers are played overall. And, you fold that into this whole celebration of the game being centered in the way that cities are for All-Star break. You get to have this celebration going on. Everybody's in your town, all type of celebrities and stuff. And more than that, the greatest assemblage of basketball players ever with this 75th anniversary team. So, you go in any direction you want as far as your takeaway from the week.
Yeah, I mean, it was just great to see the city shine on a national stage. I'm from Twinsburg, Ohio. It's about 30 or so minutes south of Cleveland. But my roots are here, so it was just so great to see the city, put on for the nation, put on for the league, and put on for the globe. I mean, my dad, he's from Cleveland Heights. My mom is from Warrensville Heights, both east side suburbs of Cleveland. And, it was just like every time I like drive in, downtown, it's like that, this past weekend particularly, I was like, wow, like this event really is happening in my city. So that was like the great part, particularly because, you got the Joe Kim Noahs of the world talking about no one, vacations to Cleveland. So that anytime I see that video, I just kind of like cringe. But I covered the Cleveland Power Sports Summit. It was an event that focused on diversity and inclusion in sports. It was a series of events where there were like different panels. There was like, people could do like different, like you could go to different exhibits, like do different, demonstrations like yoga and stuff like that. And it was just, a real cool event to see because you had people like Cavs coach JB Bickerstaff there. You had Mayor Justin Bibb there. You had the current police chief, Wayne Drummond there on panels. And you had Congresswoman Chantel Brown there as well. Former NBA player Sam Perkins, he was there on a panel. And so it was just real cool to see, people talk about things such as, improving the relationship with law enforcement and, citizens of Cleveland, in terms of how can we make that relationship better. That was a real cool conversation. Another one was about the Ali Summit in 1967, where, Muhammad Ali and then Lou Alcindor, now known as Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and then Bill Russell and Jim Brown and a few other athletes and other, key players in Cleveland where, they came together. Ali, he was a conscientious objector, and they were, for the Vietnam War, they were questioning whether, he was like legit, like whether his, beliefs are legit in terms of not wanting to go to the Vietnam War. And once they, heard from him and heard that he was legitimate about not wanting to go because of his beliefs, and he was with the Nation of Islam, they stood behind him. So, just seeing, that history there, I like history a lot, was real cool to see. But, the downsides, it's February, so it's cold. It was a cold weekend. You got the wind blowing off the lake, and oh my gosh, it just was not a fun time weather-wise. Other than that, Cleveland really did its thing over the weekend, and I think it's been real cool to see that Cleveland has shown we can put on for these larger events. Even though we don't have like the biggest downtown area, we have the space. Like the Huntington Convention Center. We have like the different spaces where people can go and come together. So I think it's just good to see that Cleveland can put on these big events. I had the MLB All-Star Game a few years back, had the NFL Draft just last year, and we even had like some NCAA games last year as well during the tournament. So it's just cool to see Cleveland starting to maybe get some respect across the nation.
Ain't nothing wrong with Cleveland. I got some extended family out there, and it's up. We Midwest, we hold each other down. We like to mess with each other because we got our rivalries and stuff. But when it comes down to it, Cleveland showed a lot of love for Mike. When we going back talking about Mike and him showing up at the arena. It was sort of surprising that for some, how much love he got, given how much he tormented the Cavs, throughout his career. But when it comes down to it, we hear a lot of the same things about each other in Chicago that we do in Cleveland and Detroit and Indianapolis and stuff. So we back each other up when it comes down to it. Were you in Chicago a couple years ago for the All-Star?
No, I wasn't. I was. I have a friend who lives in Chicago. I was there just last summer, visiting him. He lives like in Indiana, but we went to Chicago for like one night. It was real cool, but yeah, no, I wasn't in Chicago for All-Star Weekend. The only All-Star Weekend I've been to is actually the one in Cleveland. Yeah, other than that, I've never been to any other ones. Yeah,
well, I just brought that up because we had to deal with that too. Like it's February in Chicago, so it was cold as hell. Cold. When we had it too. But the thing is, with cities like ours, we gonna have stuff for you to do inside. Because we all know you got to be inside at this time of year. So we just put up those events and those people from LA or Miami or whatever, they could be cold for a week, for a few days. They could, they're gonna complain, but in the end, it's only these things only happen once a decade or two. So you got to take advantage of them. And it looks like the next 2 years, I'm not going to be in any rush to. Well, Salt Lake City, I don't think I'm going to make any moves on that one. But Indianapolis in a couple years should be another situation that I'll try to hit up. So it'll be interesting to see how people react to those cities as well.
For sure, yeah, both very cold in the winter, so. We'll have to see how it goes.
And I wonder what kind of cultural things that Salt Lake. I know they had it there 30 years ago, but the things were a lot different then. The All-Star game and the week overall, the way that it sort of played out it had to have been different then than it was now, as far as like the club events and the way that people socialize today, as opposed to back then. But we'll see how I think that'll be an interesting sociological study next year. What they call Black Thanksgiving in Salt Lake City.
Yeah.
But Gabe, you want to jump in on that?
It's funny you bring that up. It's funny you bring it up, Cal, because it's a guy that I was real tight with who used to play for the Spurs. His name was Jonathan Simmons, because I covered him in a Ball Up $1 Million Summer Challenge.
Yeah.
And we linked up about 5 years ago when he was in the league after a Bulls game. And he was telling me about how when he was playing in Salt Lake City during the summer league, how like that was one of the roughest times in his life. And and he was saying he had talked to an all-star who had signed on a vet men deal. And I think you could guess who the all-star is because he's well accomplished and he's still playing. And he's in his 40s. And he was talking about how, the only reason why he signed there really was for basketball related purposes. And had another thing that became with the 25th hour, he would signed elsewhere. So, I know some guys that have played in the league, former, who really that fond of Salt Lake City. That works out too. Although I'm definitely excited about Indianapolis getting a chance to host it, especially with that being a place that likes to consider themselves as the birthplace of basketball and whatnot. They have a rich history. I'm pretty sure they'll put on a good show.
And in Indy, one thing that you can't say about Indy is that they're not used to hosting things. They host stuff all the time. They just hosted the national championship game in football, back in last month here in January. And they typically host Final Fours and all type of basketball related events. So yeah, it's gonna be. I'm looking forward to that definitely in a couple of years. If something happens where next year I'm able to get a credential, or if somebody flies me out to Salt Lake City, maybe I'll make that happen. But if I have to foot my own bill for the whole way, I don't know if that's going to be the move. But before we have to get Cameron off, man, let's just take it to the ball, to the court, straight up, and get your thoughts on those Cleveland Cavaliers and what they've done this year, really surprising a lot of the league, and they're in that top 4 in the East, competing with other surprising teams like the Bulls, and they have a chance, with this young talent mixture that they have, to really make some noise this year, and they're even starting to get maybe some overtures back about bringing LeBron back. It's like, this really was a perfect weekend mixture for Cleveland of old and of past, present, and future, because now they could look like, not only do we got it going on now, we may get LeBron, we may get Bronny, we may get all everybody playing in Cleveland in a couple of years, and it's gonna be popping again, by Lake Erie. But what do you think about what's going on so far? And what do you think about how things? What are your expectations as this, I guess, coming out of the All-Star break for this group?
Yeah. I mean, they've been a complete surprise to me just this whole season. I thought, at best they were potential play-in team, but they're a lot more than that. I think that they got to get healthy right now. They got some guys who are out. Darius Garland, he's been out here and there. I know Karis LeVert, he's out tomorrow for their game too. So they got to get healthy a little bit. But I think once they do get healthy, and get ready for that playoff push, they could get to the finals depending on how the matchups are looking to me, because I don't think that any team is that strong in the East, at the moment. You look at all the matchups in the East, and all of those I think could go either way. Just depending on how things go. Like, I think this is a real big year in the East where we just got to see how things go, because Miami, to me, even though they're at the top, they're still beatable. I don't think that they're necessarily all the way like championship caliber, but I think that the Cavs have a good chance of, at the very least, getting to the Eastern Conference Finals with what they have. They have a great rookie in Evan Mobley. That's a future superstar right there. You have first-time All-Star in Jared Allen, one of the best defending big men in the league, one of the best, pick and roll big men in the league. And you got all these other good pieces. Like, you got, a good vet like Rajon Rondo. You got Lauri Markkanen. He's had a good season. You got a good vet and Kevin Love. He's had a great resurgence just playing off the bench. Chetty Osman, he's really starred in his role. So they got a lot of good, nice pieces over in Cleveland, over with the Cavs. So I'm looking forward to seeing what they can do come playoff time.
How has the city responded to them? Given the disappointment of the Browns, and the Indians aren't the Guardians. They got their name changed finally, but not much going on beyond that. How is the Cavs coming in and having this surprise season? How has it affected the city?
Yeah, I mean, they're rallying behind them. I mean, we always say oh, this is a Browns town, but the Cavs, even when because I helped cover the Cavs for a little bit, the 2019-20 season, even when because they were bad that year, they never had an attendance issue. Like, the Cavs have really never had an attendance issue, regardless of their record. Like, people come out, they've always pretty much came out, as long as I've been alive. I've been on this earth 24 years, and came up with the LeBron era. People have came out and supported the Cavs in droves. I mean, and that's just shown in the parade. Like, that was one of the craziest days, over 1 million people in downtown Cleveland. The streets were flooded with people. So people really do love the Cavs here. I mean, I feel like, it's always going to be that Browns town, but people love the Cavs here, especially this season. They've really rallied behind them, and they love the team. So,
But Drew, you had a question, Drew?
More like a comment. Just in terms of I don't know if I'm rating him too high, or maybe it was because it didn't happen at the deadline, but more so like a week ahead of time. But I don't feel like the Pacers picking up LeVert got enough attention or enough buzz or enough light as I think it.
I think Cleveland picking up LeVert.
Who did I say?
The Pacers picking up.
Hey, I'm sorry, Cleveland picking up LeVert. Just because of the scoring dynamic that he gives that team, in tandem with Garland.
Yeah,
he makes them so much more of a threat. Like I think the national picture is it's the Nets, the Bucks, the Heat, the 76ers, and then everybody else. The Bulls and Cavs kind of lumped in together there. But I think that LeVert makes them so much more dangerous. What was there a different type of feeling in the city with that trade? And
I think people really love. Really liked picking up Karis LeVert. I mean, like you said, he's one of the most underrated scorers in the league, and he's got great off the bounce game. He can get pretty much anywhere he wants, in the mid range area. Just a very talented scorer. So he really gives them, especially on the wing. Like they needed a lot of punch on the wing because Isaac Okoro, very great defender, but not where he needs to be right now offensively. So they needed that, scoring punch on the wing. Lauri Markkanen, he's not really a scorer like that. He's more of a stretch four type. But I mean, I think that I agree. Yeah, I think that picking him up propels them to that Eastern Conference Finals territory in terms of like their ceiling. Like the finals, it's not. I don't think it's totally out of the question, but I also don't think it's like that high of a chance. I just think it's like a very I wouldn't be totally shocked if they made the finals, but I'd be like a little bit, I guess, just because it's like, there's a lot of other good teams in the East. So,
well, you mentioned the matchups, and that's something I agree with you a lot on, man. I think the matchups will be key.
Yeah.
And whether you talk about who has home court or who will be in that sort of 2-3 range where you're gonna have to like if you're the 1 seed, you can stay away. Who you stay away from in that second round is going to be big, and a lot of that's going to depend on how much the Nets are going to be able to rise up out of that back half. Because if you wind up facing the Nets in the first round or the second round, you kind of screwed. You may be screwed, but if you're a young team like the Cavs or a team like the Bulls who don't have a lot of playoff experience with each other, we do have some playoff experience sprinkled around, but not as a unit. So we're gonna talk a lot about that in the weeks ahead, but. I don't want to hold you on too long, Cam. Again, man, I appreciate you coming on, and I definitely want you to come back on and just talk some hoops with us at some point.
For sure. Thank you so much for having me on. It was great talking with you, y'all. Yeah, I mean, I know I've been in the spaces with you all for a little bit here and there.
We appreciate the support, man.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me on. Yeah, I really appreciate it. It was great talking with you guys.
Let people know how to follow you and see your work right quick. I put a link up to your story about the Power Sports Summit in our comments, so people can check that out.
Yeah. So you can follow me at Cameron Fields _ on Twitter, and then if you just Google like Cameron Fields Cleveland.com, then you'll get to my page on Cleveland.com where it has all my stories as well.
That's what's up. Support this brother. It's not easy being a young black man on a major metropolitan newspaper staff. So, show us some love for that. And, wish you the best. Keep going, man. And we'll get up with you soon.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me on. Yeah, it was great talking hoops with you guys. Yeah, hopefully, I can do it in the future too.
Yeah, you definitely, man. You're welcome. Welcome to join us anytime.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Kyle.
All right. Thanks, y'all. Have a good one.
You too.
All right, you too.
Thank
you. Again, Cameron Field. We go run it more. Going the next 55 minutes. We gonna get off before Snowfall come on. So I'm assured of that. So, but we got some stuff we gonna get into with Gabe and Drew here. Sean Terry, I was hoping to have him on, but he may be stuck on baby duty for the rest of the show. So I don't know if he's gonna be able to come on with us. We'll check with him sometime down the road. He's in Cleveland too. He was fortunate enough to be on the show that we had before All-Star Week. So we did check up with him then. But I don't know. We sort of started to get into it with Cam, talking about the layout of the East and everything. We get back to action tomorrow, league wide, and the Bulls gonna be playing the Hawks tomorrow, among other matchups. I don't know, Drew, if you got anything you want to get into, like I say, anything off the top that you want to get into that you're looking at.
Yeah, man, it's just we touched on a little bit just in terms of kind of zooming out of the Eastern Conference playoff picture as it stands right now, and how there's no pushovers to really be had in that top 8. Even depending on if somebody sneaks in through the play-in, it really isn't sweet out East, man, at all. And kind of zooming in and looking at how that affects things going forward with the Bulls, with them getting Tristan Thompson on the squad and having to kind of reacclimate guys like Patrick Williams and Alex Caruso and Lonzo Ball back into the lineup. Hopefully, eventually, knock on wood for them.
Drew, right quick, what do you think about what the Bulls have done? Because they pretty much done what we expected them to, and they went to the buyout market and got a big man. Do you think they got the best big man they could get?
I think so. But Tristan Thompson and Robin Lopez were the two guys that I was hoping they were looking at, and for them to get Tristan Thompson, a guy who is a better rebounder, who's younger, who has, I believe, more playoff experience, definitely more championship experience, if I'm not mistaken. It still definitely has more left in the tank, especially if he's only going to be asked to play kind of a secondary role to Vucevic and to be able to spell Vucevic for stretches during the games. I think they absolutely hit the lottery, so to speak, in getting Tristan Thompson to sign here. And it speaks to how much of a difference 2 years makes, where the Bulls were never in play for a guy on the buyout market, because why would they be? They never were really in contention to do anything. But why would them kind of staying at the top of the Eastern Conference for the majority of the year, and you got DeRozan playing at an MVP level. Whether or not he gets it, that's one story, but he definitely is playing worthy enough to be considered. It just speaks to how far they've come in such a short time. I don't think I expected them to do this. I thought they, 3 maybe best case scenario, 4 or 5, kind of like what I was more so looking at. But they've done well for themselves. But they got a hell of a stretch coming now, and like we talked,
they do, yeah.
These variables with, Zach LaVine got this platelet-rich plasma injection that a lot of guys in the past have gotten. Kobe had gotten it in the past. Brandon Roy, some other guys. So it's helped them in certain stretches, but they're gonna have to figure out how to manage his back-to-backs, and just seeing how it reacts to games now moving forward. So it's some variables in there, man. We still don't know exactly when guys will be back, how they'll perform when they get back. And like we spoke to, there's not a whole lot of wiggle room in that Eastern Conference. You go on a 2, 3, 4 game losing streak, and you might find yourself as a 5th or 6th seed. So it's going to be
right now. You have 7 games separating the Heat and Bulls atop with the best records in the East, and the Nets 7 games behind in the number 8 spot. But from number 5 up, there's only a 2.5 game difference. So, like you say, there's going to be a lot of movement in the next month and a half, and I think I feel good though about the team because of the way that they ended that stretch going into the All-Star weekend. They're currently on a 5-game streak. They won 7 of the last 10 games, so they didn't fall apart in the way that was really feared, in that latter half of January where they really was, they weren't stopping anyone and they weren't playing very aggressive ball and they weren't playing very confident ball in a lot of those games. But they got back to it in the early half of February, and I feel much better. And again, knowing what the timetable is now for the returns, I think if you can get 2 of those guys that we hope to get back on the court in the second half, talking about Caruso and Ball and Williams, if you get just 2 of those guys ready for the playoffs in a fully formed fashion, I think they'll be the team that they need to be. And I don't see them dropping out of the top 4, regardless of what the schedule is and how tough it is. I see them playing well enough to stay in that top 4. And when you look at them being a 23-8 team at home, as opposed to let me look right quick, 15-13 on the road, it'll be nice for them to have a home court advantage, to say the least. So I think they will be determined enough to do that. And I said, God willing, they stay healthy enough that there isn't really many teams that I think can beat them on a given night.
Yeah, see, I kind of go back and forth, man. It's like when I want to fix my mouth to say, yeah, but they ain't got Giannis. They don't have, proven playoff performers like Giannis or KD or Kyrie, who actually
they got motivated people though. They got
right.
motivated people.
That's my second mind.
Yeah.
Man, they still got 2 of the most lethal scorers in the NBA. They still have 2 guys in Caruso and Ball who, when they're on the court together and they're playing the way they have been playing earlier in the season, their defense, was top 10. Maybe outside the top 10, and it makes Vucevic look so much better because it's a style of defense that's more suited to what he's capable of doing. Not to mention what you just said, this team may not, what they lack in playoff experience, they more so to make up for in the size of the chips on a lot of these guys' shoulders, man. Between DeRozan and Vucevic and their playoff struggles, Levine never have made it to the playoffs. Aldo Sumu being passed over team after team in the draft. Man, you name it, they've got it. Guys wanting to prove themselves. So as much as in a series against the Sixers or the Nets or the Bucks, they may not have the best player on the court. They still have, I think, enough where it's definitely not going to be easy pickings for their opponents. It's just going to come down to what it always comes down to: being able to execute, not turn the ball over, making your free throws, which is another boom for them with the roles and the amount of times he gets to the line and how well he's able to knock them down. So it's kind of that give and take where I'm kind of in the middle. Like, they definitely will be up against it depending on how things break, but they also have, I think, enough to challenge those teams and give them a run for their money, if not beat them.
And Drew, we'll Gabe, I'll bring you into this too, but
Okay.
like if you look at looking at the standings right now, the Bulls are like I say that they have the tie for the best record, but they would fall in the 2 slot because they lose the tiebreaker to Miami as of now. Now, so that would put them in the first round against the Raptors. Now, I think as good as the Raptors have been and much as they've overachieved, probably as much as any team outside of the Bulls and the Cavs, I think that's a winnable first round matchup for them. But you don't have the security of knowing that easy 2 to 7 or 1 to 8 slot, anymore with the playing games. So there's a chance that they could see the Nets or the Hornets or the Hawks as well as the standings currently lie, or even the Wizards. The Wizards can play themselves back. They're pretty close at 11. I think outside of that, you pretty much don't have to worry about anybody. The Knicks, Pacers, Pistons, and Magic round out the Eastern Conference. But, out of the possible matchups, what would be the match? And we can include all those top 11 teams. Okay. Because, again, the Bulls could play down to 3 or 4 or 5 or whatever. What would be the one team that you would look at and be like, God, they going out in the first round if they see this team?
The Bulls are going out?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
What's the nightmare team that you wouldn't want to see?
I think the nightmare is if Brooklyn somehow doesn't push up, which I think is even less of a possibility because I'm hearing news now that they might lift that mandate in New York. So it's all just real silly to me, man. This whole thing with not being able to play home games, but guys coming in from out of town can play. It's just weird, man. But
it was. I didn't notice how stupid it was before. I just was more hung up on the Kyrie aspect of it. But it really, why would you let opposing players from outside of that area, that tri-state area, come in and possibly infect your people? But you won't let someone who, for better or worse, they're being careful amongst themselves. They may have ideas that we don't agree with, but he's been living in your community, and as far as we know, he hasn't set off any alarms in his behavior, and he hasn't set off any outbreaks amongst himself. So they probably been safer this whole time, letting Kyrie do his thing than letting the dozens of people who were also doing the same thing as Kyrie, but doing it in God knows where, come into New York and come out and just be free to do what they want. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, man. It really doesn't. But I think, Brooklyn has to be the top answer for the question that you just posed. They gotta be. I think Atlanta might be a close second. Although I will say,
you think matchup wise they would be that different?
Matchup wise, because I think possibly. But I like the fact that they've got 3 guys in Caruso and Dosunmu and Ball who can stay attached to Trey Young on those pick and rolls that he's so deadly with, him and John Collins or Oneku. Am I pronouncing his name right? Is he injured actually? Yeah.
You talking about their backup center?
Yeah. Capella and Oneku, I think.
Because Clint gonna play the 5. You know Clint gonna start.
Yeah.
Clint they start in the center. But but O will be their backup 5, and he will be a guy that will be a nightmare, especially with the Bulls being so thin in the front court. If guys like Tris get into foul trouble and Vucevic is off on a given night, Clint could dominate that matchup and they could get a Bulls some problems in the interior. I think that would be more problematic than Trey. I believe that you can live with Trey cooking up, but you can give them different looks. I think with the bigs, they might struggle a little bit. It depends. If Vucevic isn't on his A game and he's in foul trouble and Tris gets in foul trouble, then you might have a rough game or two with Atlanta. But Brooklyn is definitely a team I don't think the Bulls want to face, especially in the wake of what happened in January, even though that team was completely different and you had James and Kyrie and KD all on the floor together. which was the last time I believe they were all on the floor together. But that's not a team you want to see. You got a Ben Simmons that's on a mission to prove himself. You have Seth Curry, who's one of the top all-ball players and playmakers in the league when it comes to knocking down shots. That team could get Cam Thomas. It could come from anywhere on any given night. And then, Kevin Durant, you got to throw him multiple looks. And on the wing, even though the Bulls have, multiple wings they could throw at them, I mean, these aren't guys that have been battle-tested in the playoffs. So Brooklyn's damn sure not a team you want to see in the first round. I don't care who you are. I don't even think Miami want to see.
Yeah,
I think Miami been kind of laying low. I think as far as criticism goes, like Miami, they are a good team, but I think even less so than the Bulls. They haven't like some people have talked about the Bulls and other people have been like, the Bulls ain't like people haven't been that way with Miami as much. So, I think there's a possibility for them to be exposed, but maybe not. But I think definitely that would be the case if they was to see, like if they were to, if that was the 1-8 matchup, I would bet Brooklyn 100 times out of 100 to beat Miami. And that's just the way I feel on that one. But outside of what I want to go to you to what you gave, sticking sort of with Brooklyn is that the early rumblings, reports out of Brooklyn, it seemed to be positive. Like a lot of people are like who have been looking at the team and practice and stuff. They're saying that Ben Simmons is making a difference right away, even in the way that the team is relating to each other, in the way that they're working with each other. Like, is that surprising to you in any way, or what do you think about that?
That's not surprising to me at all, because ever since Ben Simmons has stepped foot in the league, he's made a tremendous impact on every team he's been on. I mean, you think about what he did in Philadelphia his rookie season. He took a team, even though Embiid had a tremendous rookie season 5 years ago, he took a team, on a hot streak in the second half of the year where they won like 17 in a row, and they were running, great plays out of dribble handoff situations and making things happen in fast breaks, creating turnovers and whatnot. And they looked like a team that was poised to make a deep run in the Eastern Conference his rookie year. So everywhere Ben Simmons has gone, you even go back to high school with Montverde, he's always won. He's always been a team first guy. He's a guy that's easy to play with. Ben Simmons is unselfish to a fault. And, and I've had the pleasure of being around Ben Simmons, watching him go to work, when he was an All-American and when the All-American games were here in Chicago alongside of Brandon Ingram and all those guys. And I never heard anybody throughout that camp say a bad word about him. So he's always been a team first guy, and I know he's rejuvenated, I'm pretty sure, coming off of a trade where, prior to it, you had people calling you out, whether that was legends of the game like Shaq, fans are like NBA Twitter. You can't sit up here and not be motivated if you're not Ben Simmons, to go out there when the time comes to compete and the ball is up, seek to make a difference on his next team. And I think the league should be concerned, because anytime you have Ben Simmons paired with Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, his number one weakness, which is shooting, he don't really have to shoot now. All he got to do is just run the break and ignite the break or finish it, which he can do with his athletic ability and defend. And he's going to take that defense to another level, because now you're talking about a guy that you brought into the building who can defend 1 through 4, if not 5, depending on how small teams are playing. So I think he'll make a difference off the bat.
Yeah, and I think Gabe, you might get at me because I swear it's not a shot at James Harden. I swear, but I feel like because they not only got Ben Simmons, but they also were able to get Seth Curry and Andre Drummond, 2 guys who fill needs for that roster with Joe Harris. Joe Harris's injury, and I'm not even sure if he's going to be back this season. And Drummond just being somebody that can clog the paint, is going to rebound, is going to gobble up so many extra possessions for those guys. Like, I feel like this team is maybe even more dangerous than it was with Harden. Although, we know that those 3 guys only played 16 games together. Had their playoff run last year, were hampered by injuries. KD's feet touching the line and all this other stuff. But what Marks did to get the package that he did for Harden, I thought was incredible. And I know Morey might have been kind of pushed to the wall. He didn't, not that he got the short end of the stick, but Brooklyn, I think, just did very well for themselves at the trade deadline.
I think it was best for both sides, to be honest.
Yeah.
I think Morey got the guy that he wanted. I always was an adamant person about Daryl. I always said it on NBA Twitter for the longest. I said he's not going to trade Ben Simmons unless if he gets an all-star player, and it's more than likely an all-star player that he wants in return that he has a history with. And him and James have always gone way back, and I think it works best for both sides. Only thing I question with Philadelphia is how do James and Joel mesh with one another? James is used to playing with a pick and roll big, whether that was Clint in Houston, whether that was Nick Claxton in Brooklyn, and even, Bruce Brown in short pick and roll dump offs and whatnot when they went small. Now he has a big that can command the ball, and he doesn't really have to do too much to set him up. He can just get out the way. And I wonder how does James react to that? I wonder how does James play off of that, because there's going to be some nights where he may not have his shot going, and he's going to have to, rely on Embiid and vice versa. But I think that's an interesting pairing. I think he'll thrive with Joel, and I think he's excited to play with Joel based on what he said and hearing the rumblings that I've heard. So I understand what you talk about with Brooklyn. I think that they have become a more balanced team. I wish that it would have been able to work with those three guys all together, knowing that they have history and whatnot, and they really were willing to make it work. But I think some things got in the way with that. It was particularly between him and Kyrie, and that's what led to the trade going down when it did.
Yeah. I said it on the night of the trade deadline. We was reacting to everything. Like I think both teams did what they needed to do, and they got what they wanted out of the deal. Whether or not they come out of it better, that's still, we have to let that play out. But in the moment, they did what they needed to do to make the deal that they needed, and I applauded them for it, because there were other teams out there who needed to make deals, like the Lakers primarily, who couldn't get out of their own way, and they fumbled away opportunities that they had. So instead of getting caught up in the egos and all that, Morey did what he needed to do and he worked with Marks, and they got the deal. And I imagine for Morey, it wasn't that easy, because so much of the conversation surrounding him was that, look, you ain't gonna get the guy that you want. You ain't gonna get nobody. Just abandon ship and give away Simmons to whoever. Lord knows who, the Sacramento or who, and all these other teams. Like people just begging for him to make this trade, but he's like, no, he held on and he got the guy that he wanted to get. So now we get to see, like you say, we get to see what that Philly team is with the two stars that he wants in Embiid and Harden, and it's going to be interesting. Like, I want to get into the West right quick, but before we do that, I want to throw this to you, Gabe. Like, what do you think that top four is going to be in the East when we get to the playoffs? How would you think that's going to fall?
I'm gonna be honest. I really don't know. It depends on the week, and it depends on who gets hot at the right time. I think March is going to be a very critical month for the top four teams, whether that's being right now, currently Miami, the Bulls, the Sixers, and the Cavs. I think you have one bad week in the East, it could set you back, a great deal in the standings. So, and you look at the Bulls, they got Atlanta coming in tomorrow night. Then you got to deal with Ja and Desmond Bane and the Grizzlies and Jaren Jackson Jr. on Saturday night. That's a big time game. Yeah. You also got Utah coming up on the schedule. Their schedule is not getting any easier towards the second half of the season. They got a game with Cleveland going down, I think, on the second Saturday of March. That's going to be a big time showdown game in the division. And then you got Milwaukee, still in the mix. And all of these teams, you got three teams in the East, 3 through 5, sitting 2.5 games behind both the Heat and the Bulls.
And Milwaukee technically makes it a top 5 because they're tied with Cleveland in the loss column. So
exactly.
Yeah,
just a quick aside. Tankathon has Milwaukee with the toughest schedule going forward, and the Bulls are number 2, I believe.
Yep.
So,
yep.
Well, that's what you said, Drew. They got a tough schedule ahead. So
let me pose, I know you're trying to get to the Western Conference. Let me pose this to you guys. Knowing what we know about the Eastern Conference and the lack of wiggle room in there, but also knowing what's going on with Zach LaVine's knee, how do you guys play that? You just make it as simple as possible. If he's feeling any type of distress, you sit him out.
I think no back-to-backs.
No back-to-back.
Mm-hmm. Leave that alone, and whatever. Just keep the conversation open, keep the communication open. If he feels, any discomfort, sit him out. And take it easy on him. Like that's really the guy. Unless anything drastic happens around the rest of the team, that's really the guy you got to watch out for at the moment.
Yeah,
I would rest him on back-to-backs. That it would be no discussion on that. Just watching him and the way he was moving, because I was at the last game he played against Minnesota. You could tell something wasn't right. Just when he landed on that dunk, when he got on a breakaway, he just didn't look good at all that night. So I would rest him on back-to-backs, especially looking at where we are in the season and whatnot. If I was in the Bulls front office, just speaking from that perspective, I would rest him on back-to-backs, and I would ask him how is he feeling on a daily basis, because when it gets to the playoffs, it's gonna be all gas, no brakes, and they're going to need him. They're gonna need him.
Yeah, and I think they got 4 more back-to-backs left, and 2 of them are with Milwaukee, I think, because they got 3 games left against Milwaukee in total. So, yeah, man.
Yeah, they got Gabe went into it, but like you said, the Hawks tomorrow, Grizzlies Saturday, Heat Monday. That's going to be in Miami, and Hawks in Atlanta on Thursday, the week from tomorrow, and that back-to-back they'll be playing back at home the Friday, the 4th against Milwaukee. So well, it's gonna, like I say, it's ramping up. It's that time of year, and the Bulls, just a quick note, they're the only team in the East with a winning streak above, I think, 2 games right now. Let me make sure. They have, the only other team with a winning streak right now in the East is the Hawks with 2 games, and the Bulls have a 5-game streak. So, it's really has the feeling of like a whole new season starting, coming out of this All-Star break, because of the way that the standings are bunched, and everybody who was in that top 11 really has to feel like they have a chance at the playoffs. But
I want to say something real quick though. If that top 4 stays the same in the East going into the playoffs, imagine if you're Milwaukee and you're the defending champs and you have to open up round 1 on the road in Cleveland. Which is a top-notch defense. And Evan Mobley, he's another guy kind of like a Ben Simmons. He changes your culture. He's a guy that, who defensively can make such a significant impact on your team, where he can take you places where you probably didn't even think you could go. And I think he's been a huge difference maker in Cleveland. Everybody talks about Darius Garland, and he's been great, in the pick and roll game and whatnot. And he's grown immensely. But Evan Mobley, to me, is a guy that more than likely going to be the first rookie since Tim Duncan to make an all-defensive team, and easily the rookie of the year right now. I don't know how you don't give him that award.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, definitely. I think Cleveland's been in the house, man. It's like the old Bone song. Cleveland is definitely in the house. We'll see how they can keep it up. And they got a lot of talent on that team, man. So I do want to like I say, make some mention of the West. It seems like a lot is unsettled out there. You do have the top the top teams, but you got the Suns now dealing with Chris Paul being sidelined, and I guess that's a good place as any to start. The Suns 48-10 best record in the league. Surprisingly 6.5 games even above the Warriors coming into the break. They came into the break with a 7-game win streak. What do we think about what's going on with the Suns right now that they have to play in the immediate future without Chris Paul? What type of impact is that going to have on that top of the West?
I don't think much.
Oh, you go ahead.
I really don't think much, but I will say this though. I know Phoenix kind of maybe having to look back if it does go bad and wonder, should we have made a play at Goran Dragic? Because it's gonna put a bullseye on Campaign's neck. Because with him having big games coming up, and he's been talking a lot of trash, talking about how Lakers not a threat, we the top team in the West. Well, now you got a bullseye on your back because you got to lead the offense and ignite it. I think Devin Booker will help keep him afloat a great deal. I think you're gonna see his numbers start to pick up. I think Mikal Bridges will start to step it up more. I think Jay Crowder will start to step it up more. DeAndre Ayton, you start to see more 20 and 10 games from him. But losing Chris for 6 to 8 weeks, that's going to be huge. I still think that they're the best team in the West because as a unit, to me, they're the closest team in basketball. And it showed. In the fourth quarter, I wouldn't bet against them, but I think that's where they're going to miss Chris Paul the most because I've seen him, dating back to when he was in Houston, the way he's able to lead teams and make things happen in the pick and roll and get to his spots. They're going to miss that dearly. But
nobody executes a half-court offense better than him.
I don't think so either, especially with the money on the line. And I like the way that they were playing and they were clicking, and it couldn't have came at a worse time for them. But I think they managed the whole serve. The team that I'm more intrigued to see and how they are able to play going into the second half, and if they could get their 2 lead guys back, is the Clippers.
They're sitting at number 8 right now. You look at those play-in spots right now. You got the T-Wolves at 7, Clippers at 8, and I'm kind of with you, Gabe. I think they're 8 and rising. Lakers are at 9, and the Blazers are at 10, and you got the Spurs and Pelicans on the outside looking in, 2 games outside of the Blazers.
Yeah, and I think I just saw that Nurkic is going to be out. I don't remember the reasons why.
Yeah.
There you go, my man.
So that mean, really, yeah. We how much can you expect from Portland at this point? Given what they've all seen with injury wise, they had to shut down Dame, and now they got their big man out. It's going to be. Maybe Anthony Simons might average 40 the rest of the year. Anthony Simons, but I don't know what they're gonna do as a playoff team or a prospective playoff team at all.
I think another team is knocking on the door to getting that 10 spot, and I think it's gonna be between San Antonio and New Orleans. New Orleans, the way CJ McCollum has been rejuvenated going down there, playing next to Brandon Ingram, a guy that should have been in the All-Star game. I don't know how he didn't get consideration for that. I think that's something when people look back at this season, they're going to regret that. I expect to see big performances from him as well. Herb Jones, the rookie wing out of Alabama has been very nice for them as well, coming into his own defensively and even offensively. I like what they've been able to do there. Yeah, granted, they're missing Zion and, some question marks regarding his future there and whatnot, as well as his health. But I think they're playing for it. They're really playing for it, and I can see Willie Green and his coaching staff, seeking to make some things happen over there.
But that's my thing. That's my thing with New Orleans is like, do we think they're maybe in some way going to be galvanized by this Zion stuff and be like, well, we know he's not fully in right now, so let's just make the best of what we got. And what do we think about all that? Like there was the issue earlier this week about him not talking to McCollum. Reportedly that's been cleared up since they've been on the phone with each other. But who knows how that conversation went? But regardless of how civil he is with his teammates right now, you know, McCollum he's playing and Zion isn't. And, you know, what do you make of that?
Well, I mean, you can't play with foot injuries. I think it's unfortunate that, you know, he didn't reach out to CJ right away, but I'm glad that they rectified that. And I understand why some guys, especially in the New Orleans media, are coming down on him, and even some of the national. But then again, we're talking about a guy who just turned 21 years old and was just given the keys to a franchise right off the bat and wasn't able to necessarily lead them out the bat right away as he dealt with some injuries then. And, you know, had a great second season last year, put together some impressive numbers on the way to his first All-Star appearance, and showed that when healthy, you know, he can be a top 10 or 15 player in this. But I mean,
do you think he's been resentful that he's had to bend in New Orleans?
Partially so. Because when you looked at the lottery odds during that time, which was 2019, if I can recall, when he came out, everybody was looking at New York as the landing spot. And to me personally, I know I had podcasts about this when I was back at DePaul. I always said the two teams that I would have loved to have seen Zion fall into their lap at the number one pick was New York and Atlanta. You know, you think about a market like Atlanta that hasn't really had a big-time superstar in it since Dominique Wilkins. Now, granted, Trae Young has evolved into that, but at the time, I thought, you know, you pair those two guys together, you know, you could do some scary stuff out there. And it would make Atlanta a very interesting place to be as a free agent. New York, you know, as well, needing a big-time superstar. So I think it was some resentment there, knowing that Zion has been a big fan of Madison Square Garden and whatnot, and being on that East Coast and the ACC country with Duke, you know, where you had some guys that were, you know, at Duke that made it, you know, that were former Knicks and whatnot. So I think those two teams were definitely on his radar, but I think it's a lot of things. When guys get hurt, you know, that's tough to deal with, especially when you're a guy who came in with so much anticipation as buzz as he did. But if you're New Orleans, what do you have to lose by playing for a play-in spot when you've been in this abysmal state since Anthony Davis and DeMarcus Cousins didn't work? You know, you got to do something if you're Trajan Langdon and David Griffin and Swin Cash in that front office group in New Orleans.
That's a good point.
Drew, you got anything to add on that?
Not on the Zion aspect. I don't think his teammates are taking anything kind of like a we'll show you type of attitude to it. I don't think he doesn't seem like the type of dude that, regardless of what's come out recently, I don't think he gives off that type of energy. Like, it's about me.
And maybe it's not necessarily like, because again, you know, I'm sure players understand the situation that he's in. It maybe not necessarily an anti-Zion thing, but an anti-everyone else. I mean, you know, teams, whatever they have a chance to be to us against the world, you know, they're gonna play that. And I think a lot of the national narrative is like, you know, New Orleans is second rate. Yeah. You know, Zion don't want to be there. Who do they really have there? What type of future do they have? So you got these group of guys, mostly young guys there right now, who's like, look, we gonna show y'all what we got, and we gonna play into this playoff. So that, you know, or at least into this play-in, you know. So that definitely could be the case with New Orleans. That the reason for them to look at them, you know, for the rest of the season, you know.
You're right. You know, I took your question the wrong way. You did say
I didn't. Yeah, I didn't explain it perfectly.
No, but now that I see what you're saying. That definitely can come into play. And I think both of you guys separately are making a good case for the Pelicans to, like you said, sneak into that play-in. Like Gabe said, with the way that Brandon Ingram is playing, the way that McCollum is playing, I could definitely see that happening.
And then so you look at that bottom of the West is bunched much like the East is the top of the East, because like you know, you got the Pelicans and Spurs at 25. They're both 23 and 36, and the Lakers are 27 and 31. And you know, like I I think the Clippers are playing themselves out of that group. They're like 2.5 games above the Lakers in the loss column. So, you know, I don't know any of the other teams as I look at these teams out here. You know, you got, like I said, you got the Clippers at 8. Timberwolves. I think the Timberwolves may be interesting at 7. You know, I'm kind of a little wishy-washy. I'm trying to see where they fit in. But you got the Nuggets at 6, Mavericks at 5. Those are 2 teams I think are going to stay in that area right there. And you got the Jazz, Grizzlies, Warriors, and Suns. You know, reasonable to think that they will stay in that top 4 in some fashion.
Yes, I don't think, unlike the East, I think that top 4 in the West is locked. Like, it's changed who's in what position. But I think those top 4 are here to stay. One thing we need to mention is that not only is Chris Paul out, but Cameron Payne and Landry Shamet are also injured, I think, at least for the next, or going to be out for at least the next 2 weeks. So I don't know if Devin Booker is going to have to brush up on his point guard skills because, like you guys spoke about, Chris Paul not being there, it takes one of the best decision makers in basketball off the court. It takes one of the best facilitators off the court. A guy in DeAndre Jordan who depends so much on other guys setting him up. You know, who sets him up now? Who orchestrates that half-court offense other than Devin Booker? Like, that's a lot to put on Booker's shoulders moving forward. But other than Phoenix, the 2 teams I'm really looking at is Memphis and Denver, because I think that there's a chance that Murray could be back before the season's over, if I'm not mistaken, and maybe an outside chance of Michael Porter Jr., although back injuries, it's tricky, very tricky.
And he's had a history, so
yeah. But I'm really interested in Memphis because they don't know no better, man. They go 0-60. They coming at you. Even with Morant out earlier in the season, they strung together 6, 7, 8 game winning streak. Granted, some of the teams they played were going through COVID injury related things, but still to get that, to have the record they do with their best player off the floor just speaks to how much
you got to look at them as. You got to look at them as the Phoenix of what Phoenix was last year. They could possibly be this year, and just be a complete disruptor, and maybe take the whole conference if they feel able to. But again, maybe position in the count. I don't know, but I don't know if this is a first round matchup that they're going to be worried about. But really, that I just look ahead to that play-in scenario and in the West, and anything involving the Lakers is just going to be over. It's going to be overdrawn and overhyped, but it's going to be candy for us, man. Everybody talking ball is just going to be wrapped up in what's the Lakers are doing and what are they close by? Who are they going to play in that first play-in game? Then who they'll play in that second playing game, and how will those matchups, play out, with those top teams in the West. But and more so than last year, those matchups may not mean a damn because of how good Golden State and Phoenix is as individual entities. But I think really the drama goes from, like I say, in the East, the drama goes from top to bottom. It's kind of the other way around in the West. The drama goes from the bottom to the top.
I agree with you there, especially when you have the Clippers and the Lakers both at 8-9 respectively. And if the season were to end today, the fact that you would have the Clippers and the Suns playing in round 1, which would make for a Western Conference Finals rematch in round 1, and if you had a healthy PG and Kawhi in the fold, that's a hell of a series. But to me, I think the top 3 spot in the West are for lock. But then when I look at that 4th spot in the West, that's for grabs. If I'm Denver, I'm only 3 games out. We can get that. If I'm Dallas, who's been playing some incredible basketball lately, and Luka's been, putting up triple-double numbers, you're only a game and a half back of Utah. And to me, Utah is a team that's built for the playoffs, I think, better this season than in the last couple of seasons. However, that 4th spot, they're going to have to work for it and maintain, to stay there.
That's a good point.
Yeah, so I think that fourth spot is still up for grabs. I think even a third spot, depending on what Utah is able to do, even though they've been battling through some injuries as well, and trying to see how they can shore up some depth. But they had like a real rough stretch, in the wake of Donovan Mitchell having a concussion injury. But prior to the All-Star break coming, they looked like they were starting to find their footing again and playing some top-notch basketball.
This is my last question about the West. If say things like we said before, they play out the way that they are now, and Phoenix stays in the 1 and Golden State stays in 2. Now, Gabe talks about the intrigue that could happen with the 4th spot, and you talking about Utah or maybe Denver or maybe Dallas. If you're one of those teams, would you want more to stay in that 4th spot and possibly face go to state in the second round, or would you want to be like, maybe let's chill in the 6th spot and see about Phoenix in that second round? Or not Phoenix, Golden State.
Golden State?
Yeah.
I mean, I put it like this. If I was in that 4th spot and I was Utah and the matchup stayed the way that they are right now, you got the Clippers and the Suns, I would be like, yeah, I like that.
Mm-hmm.
I would like that even, and if I'm Donovan Mitchell, I would be like, I'd be licking my chops at that 4th spot, because even though like Utah and Dallas, to me, that's a series. That's gonna be a hell of a series. It's like, if you like offensive basketball, I think you're gonna get your money's worth there, and that's a series I can see going 6 or 7 games. But I would still give the upper hand to Utah, because to me they're the more battle tested and experienced team, and I think they're the more tougher team. Dallas is a team for years. Since Luka has led that team into the playoffs back-to-back years, I've questioned, their toughness in the interior. And can they really maintain that level of defensive play that they've been able to show in the midst of them winning games consistently? Because their defense really has been not there the last couple of years, and they starting to get better, but I just got to see more from them in that group. But I wouldn't mind being in that 4th spot if I'm Utah at all, because anything can happen in a Clippers and Suns matchup with all hands on deck. Anything.
So you counting on the Clippers kind of beating up the Suns, if not beating the Suns, if you're the Jazz?
I wouldn't count on it, but I wouldn't say that it's out of the question if those two guys could come back healthy, and with that group that they have, and then all of the pressure that will be alleviated off of them defensively, because now you got Robert Covington in the mix. You got Norman Powell in the mix. You got shooters there. And one thing we know about Tyronn Lue and the playoff time, when it's time for the playoffs in any game, even in the regular season, him and Nick Nurse are the 2 best coaches when it comes to making adjustments on the fly. And they don't mind tinkering with lineups and game plans. We saw it last year in the first round when he put Batum in as the 5 to play Porzingis out of the game. He did that time and time again, and it worked. He's never been afraid to make adjustments, and whether he's down 2-0 in the series or 3-1, he's proven that he can help guys get back in series by putting them in the right position to succeed.
Yeah. You talk about teams that you don't want to see in the first round. Even right now, I wouldn't want to see the Clippers really, but if you get one of those big 2 back, or what has been the news around? Is it possible that both of them could be back this season?
I think so, based off what I've been hearing. And the way the Clippers management is felt, and what I've seen across Twitter, I think it is a possibility. I saw the clips when Kawhi was at the NBA 75 event, signed in one of Rick Barry's books, and he was like, "Man, I'm trying to get back out there now." He sounds like a guy that's really hell-bent on trying to make the most of what he can with this season. If he's healthy, man, to me, in the playoffs, you need your stars there. You need that's good for the league. So I would hope that he's serious in what he said when he said, "I'm trying to get back," because he sounds like a man that's definitely determined to.
That's a team that's got better. They got better over the trade deadline, even with limited resources. And to bring those 2 guys back with what they got there, man, please.
And these young guys are growing. Luke Kennard's having a career season. Terrence Mann is having a career season. Zubac is playing well. Hardenstein is a backup 5. That team competes. Like, prior to the All-Star break, they gave the Suns a run for their money without Kawhi and PG in a
Yeah.
real good game on Tuesday night, a couple of days before the first half of the season concluded. So
Yeah.
I really like that group, man, especially with T. Lue, who's definitely gonna be determined to prove that this group is for real.
Yeah, just looking at Basketball Reference, they got Paul George out a few more weeks, and then just the update on Leonard is he could return this season. So, yeah, man,
That's definitely a team that could shake stuff up in that West.
Absolutely, absolutely.
But there's a lot of stuff we could get into, but I don't think we're gonna hold off for now. So there's I think we can still bring up some stuff in the. I might do a Twitter space before the end of the week too. Maybe we could get into some other stuff. So check us out on WARR Media on Twitter. That's where we host those. One thing I want to do, like I said, I want to get off by 9 because I want to watch the season premiere of Snowfall, and real interesting thing that I saw. I read a review for the new season on AV Club, and this is for us being basketball heads and historians. Check this out. This is how the season apparently is starting. This is, like I say, from the AV Club review. The 5th season of FX Snowfall kicks off in 1986 at the University of Maryland. A few young men are partying in a dorm room, and one of them in particular is indulging in every line of coke he can find. If you're a sports fan or have seen some historical documentaries, you know what's about to happen. And I think we all know. So that's pretty heavy, man. Starting off with Len Bias, and like tying that into Franklin Saint, like, dude, what are you doing, man? Franklin is he crossing the point of no return. I don't. He getting too mean on it, man. I don't know.
Hey, that's the game, though, man. Like we think we seen the metamorphosis, man. Like this ain't the same Franklin Saint from season 1 and 2, man. He was getting
pumped. He ain't the schoolboy no more.
Right, right.
Getting whooped in the alley for his little coat. I ran through that show, man. I caught up in the past couple months, actually, and that's a damn good show, and I'm looking forward to seeing how this season plays out. That I said, that review that I've cited says this may be the best season yet. Definitely check that out, and like I say, just incorporate something like that for that cross section of pop culture and basketball. That brings me to another thing that we're going to have to talk about soon is the LA Lakers series that's going to be on HBO. Like, there's been a lot of buzz about that as well. So it's interesting stuff on TV coming up right now for basically real life basketball and stuff. Playing to the history of basketball that we all can take in.
For sure.
But yeah, fellas, y'all got anything else on your minds before we sign off?
No, just looking forward to the season ramping back up, and it's gonna be a fun ride, man, going into these playoffs.
Yeah, same. It's always nice to get that break. I've enjoyed that with the 3 days, but once the season goes back in full swing starting tomorrow night, it's definitely going to be interesting, especially with all these matchups and these first round matchups that are going to be very intriguing in both the East and the West, no matter how they play.
You start to get withdrawal like you try to get off that powder. I need some more hoops. Get me off, Franklin.
Right.
I'm gonna be checking that out too. Snowfall is one of the best shows on television to me, so I'm definitely gonna be watching that one.
Is this the last season? They said it's gonna be the last one.
I'm not sure. I haven't heard that. No,
I don't think it can be.
Yeah,
but it's getting, but you can tell it's getting close to the end.
Yeah.
right. It's only so
It's only so much.
like that's a part of like in the review where it says like you getting too big now. You affecting too much. Like you're not just slinging your little dope in the hood now. You like say you got future NBA All-Stars dying off your stuff, man. That's not gonna work. Yeah. So yeah, we'll see, man. We'll see how it goes. But yeah, fellas, appreciate y'all, man. Another great time running with y'all. Like I said, we'll be back soon. Next week we'll have another new show planned on it, and in the meantime, we may, like I say, do a space or two just to get some other stuff off the dome. I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the Naismith, the Hall of Fame finalists and everything, but other stuff like that. Oh, and no, definitely some I think we're gonna talk about next week is the ESPN, how they listed the top 76 players. You know, I'm sure that there've been a lot of opinions on that. So we probably have to mix that up a little bit when we get some of the other guys on as well. But yeah, but now though we just gonna wrap it up and chill, and like I say, get to that Snowfall and enjoy the rest of the week. Enjoy the Bulls again, going back at it tomorrow with Atlanta, and the rest of the weekend there. Like I said, I think actually with that Saturday game, don't hold me to it 100%, but with that Saturday game, probably before the Memphis game, I think I may have a space there on Twitter. So, like I said, follow us at WARR Media on Twitter, and you will know when we go live on there. So, as otherwise, WARR Media on Facebook, on YouTube. If you may be watching this on YouTube, so this is where you watch us when we go live on these shows and everything else. Just keep looking for the logo, and we'll keep hitting you with that hotness. Gabe, you see that tag there? What Gabe said. Follow him on Twitter, and Drew. Look what Drew did. Follow him on Twitter, as many are. So don't miss out, man. They got great basketball knowledge is at your disposal with these two. So make sure you take it.
And yourself as well. Come on, man.
Hey, if I'm not talking about wrestling or Big Rudy,
the humility.
Nah, man. Hey, we just keeping it 100, keeping it having fun. Trying to get through these dreary days. So, but this is like I said, this was another good show, guys. I appreciate it.
Anytime.
And in the meantime, y'all keep bouncing. We'll holler at y'all soon.